Hello and welcome. What the fuck? We'll just restart that. Blip, 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 blip. Here we go. Hello and welcome to Three's a Crime, a true crime podcast. I'm Tori.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Lindsey.
And that's our intro.
Here we are professional podcast.
We're podcasters, bitches.
It's my turn. I'm Lindsey. Hello. Welcome to Three's a Crime.
Three's a Crime.
And today we're doing Mary Flora Bell.
I should mention in our last episode where we talked about Robert Lee Yates, I did miss talking about one of the victims, Heather Hernandez. Somehow in my notes, I must have skipped over her. So don't come at me. I know
This is our first podcast. Give us a break. All right. Just kidding. We love you.
Hey, Lindsey.
Oh.
We got you something. It's Lindsay's birthday.
Oh my God. Is that a Costco fucking cake?
It is a Costco fucking cake
Oh.
in full chocolate.
Oh my God. You're the best. Thank you.
So, we don't have birthday candles, but I do have this candle that says Michael's dick is a huge bonus. So, no, it's your birthday. You look great. Blow out your fucking candle because you deserve it.
Yay.
Happy birthday, podcaster.
Thank you.
We are also aware that there were some technical sound issues in our first episode. And again, it's because we're new and we're figuring this shit out as we go. So
Yeah.
stick with us.
It should be better from here on out.
Yeah.
Everything else is just going to be like practice. The more we do it, the better.
Okay. So Betty Bell, a 17-year-old sex worker, gave birth to Mary on May 26, 1957.
Wait, wasn't Yates? Oh no, Yates was born in 52. Close in age.
Later, Betty married Billy Bell, who is described as a career criminal who was later arrested for armed robbery. Billy was the only one who was affectionate and loving towards Mary.
Was he older than Mary's mother?
They never said his age.
Was he a customer?
I think she dated him. That's not her birth father. He
Oh.
would watch her while Betty went to Glasgow to work, do her sex work. And there's many accounts from different family members that Betty attempted to kill Mary on a couple different occasions while Mary was 1 to 2 years old. They were suspicious when she, quote unquote, fell from a window and accidentally, quote unquote, took sleeping pills.
A 1 or 2 year old?
Yes. So then a witness saw Betty giving the pills to Mary, saying that they were sweets.
What the fuck?
Apparently, she used to also just beat the fucking ever little shit.
Oh man, she was fucked from the beginning, y'all.
Yeah, she was fucked. So after the fall, Mary suffered brain damage, which affected the area of the brain that's associated with voluntary movements and decision making.
Can't believe a head injury. Could you imagine? You're just suddenly like, okay, this is my life now. What? I'm a murderer?
When you look at last week we talked about Yates, and there was no discussion of any brain injury that would have caused him to act the way that he acted. But then you talk about Mary, and now she's got a head injury, and she's a victim herself.
Oh, one time, Betty put Mary up for adoption, only to pull her out and refuse to do it when a family wanted to adopt her. She was often very abusive to Mary and seemed to have no attachment of any kind towards her. She also forced Mary to be repeatedly sexually abused from the age of 4 and on by her mother's clients.
So she was selling her 4-year-old to pedophiles.
So what? They just come and she'd like, okay, like I'm done now.
She'd take money and say, "Here's my kid. Do what you want."
Oh my fucking god.
Because I don't know if her dad was around. I don't know if maybe he was like in jail or when that was happening, because he was protective of her, but I don't know how often he was home. So in the area that she lived in, Scotswood, it was a high crime area of Newcastle, considered the slums, full of criminals, drunken fights, and severe poverty. And then they talked a lot about it's full of sex workers and prostitutes. It was just like, guys. So Mary and the other children of the neighborhood were neglected, and they were left to play alone all day in the neighborhood. Newcastle was next to Scotswood, was taking down the old slum houses to put up fancy high rises. So these abandoned houses and construction areas were playgrounds for these kids who were just running about. And I watched like this little documentary on it, and they had some of the people that Mary went to school with, and they were like, Mary had a switch. So she would be fine and playing, and then if you pissed her off, she would kind of, I called it Hulk out and lash out. And she once almost strangled a kid to death that pissed her off. The other kids made sure to stay away from her as much as possible.
She strangled. Like, I wonder how much of this was like bipolar or like a mental illness that like back then they didn't know.
I mean, I'm sure anytime she pissed her mother off, she probably suffered a very similar fate. And so that's how she learned. And I'm not defending her, don't get me wrong, but you know, that's probably how she learned to react.
There's also one where she once burned a little girl's cheek with a cigarette.
My Oma got burned with a cigarette by her ex-husband, then she hit him in the head with a shovel. Oma's a bad bitch. She's a bad bitch. Yeah, she hit him upside the head. She married my grandfather after that, who's amazing. But the first dude really sucked. She also she tried to run some lady over once because she was in the car with my grandpa. Sorry. No. That's like what you do that's like what a parent, well, not as a parent, you should not, just so we're clear, put your cigarette out on your child or anybody. But, you know, that's not a thing. How old is she at this point? I mean, younger than 11. You don't just think, oh, I'm going to burn a cigarette on your fucking face.
As Mary got older, she became friends with a girl named Norma Bell. No relation. Still just weird. God, my thing autocorrected Norma to normal so many times. I just realized. Norma Normal was her sidekick, quote unquote, and she would do whatever Mary told her to do. She was like a local bully as well. And all of the kids in the neighborhood were scared of them.
They were like a gang of two.
Yeah. Norma was, I think, 2 years older than Mary, but her IQ was that of a 8-year-old. So on Saturday, May 8th, 1968, both girls, Mary and Norma, took a 3-year-old boy to play and have some sweets. But hours later, he was found in a daze, wandering around and bleeding. And then I wrote, like in caps, no actions were taken. The next day, a mother of another kid told the police that Mary tried to strangle her little girl. No actions were taken again.
What the fuck?
But even beyond that, you know, it's a class issue where the cops are just basically like, you know, that's a slum. It's a shitty area. These are shitty people that don't matter. They're not going to waste their time looking into like, oh, your kid got hurt by another kid. Big fucking deal.
So on May 25th, 1968, one day before Mary's birthday, a 4-year-old Martin Brown was found dead. He was found in one of the abandoned houses that all the kids played in an area called Rat Alley. When they first found Martin, they couldn't tell how he was killed as he had no marks on his body.
Like she didn't have the strength to leave bruising.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so like a couple days after that, a local nursery business close to where Mary and Norma lived was broken into, and 4 pieces of paper were found with writing on them. Out of the 4, I could figure out like 3. One says, fuck off, we murder. One says, I murder so I may come back. One says, we did murder Martine Brown, fuck off, you bastard.
Okay.
Clearly school was not a priority for Mary and Norma.
But then the police saw that and didn't do anything. But it didn't say like, love Mary.
Hello, God, it's Mary. Mary was here. It's a good thing I know how to do all the electronic stuff because you guys can't kick me out. You're like, we want Emily to be gone, but she does all this. She does all the electronics.
On July 31st, 1968, 3-year-old Brian Howe went to go play with Mary and Norma in Rat Alley.
Where were his parents? I'm gonna go play with these two murderous children in Rat Alley, and his parents are like, okay, just be home for dinner.
Look, you're talking about a low economic area, and some of these parents, you know, especially if they were single mothers, they were probably working. And if they weren't working outside of the house, they were working, keeping the house up together. And so, yeah, kids just played in the street.
Okay, so he was last seen by others playing in the street with his dog. Later that day, his parents called for him to come home, but they couldn't find him.
Oh my God, where's the dog?
They never say anything else about the dog.
We like trigger warning when we talk about rape or animals or like torture or just anything real bad. Absolutely not okay for infants or whatever the fuck. Teenagers. I don't know. What are those called? My sister-in-law is pregnant, and the last time I saw her, I didn't give her a hug. Like on accident, like we were leaving and I was walking out the door and she's like, dude, you didn't give me a hug. And I was like, oh, sorry, I don't see pregnant people. I just don't even see it. Okay.
Did she cry? Was she sad about it?
No, she laughed really hard. I wouldn't say it to someone who was
That's
too
true.
sensitive.
Or didn't know you.
Or didn't know me. No, that's not true. I would say it to someone who doesn't know me and they just think I'm an asshole. I'm a lovable asshole.
All right, so Detective Chief Constable James Dobson was sent to investigate. That night at 11, Brian Howe was found dead. He was half naked with puncture wounds on one of his legs, and a chunk of his hair was cut off. He had been strangled with bruises and scratches around his neck. He also had scratches on his face and some blood that dripped from his mouth. So then, after the body was examined, it was ruled that he was strangled to death the afternoon before. There were pressure marks across his neck and nose, which showed that he was choked and smothered very carefully and deliberately.
They learned from the first one that she wasn't strong enough.
Yeah.
So now they know to hold the nose.
And it takes like 13 minutes to strangle someone because it takes 6 minutes for them to, I don't know how long, to lose consciousness, but then to actually kill them, even if you're in a headlock, it's like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a long fucking time.
There was also, it appeared to have an M was carved on his stomach.
Oh my God.
The pathologist concluded that it was a child who killed Brian after more investigation, and they were sure that Martin was killed by the same person.
How'd they figure out it was a kid?
I would think that, if with the second child, bruising was left, they would be able to tell by
Teeny tiny hands.
The police held a press conference and said they were looking for a child as the murderer. During that time, Mary would come to every press conference and told people at school that she killed the boy. And the other kids believed it, but the adults, didn't think about it. Well, oh my God, this little fucking part about this bitch. Okay. On the morning of Brian's funeral, Dobson, the policeman, was there to check out the crowd to see if there was any suspicious people. And this is his direct quote about Mary's behavior. Mary Bell was standing in front of the house when the coffin was brought out. I was watching her, Dobson said, and it was when I saw her there that I knew I did not dare risk another day. She stood there laughing and rubbing her hands together.
like an evil villain,
I thought, my God, I've got to bring her in. She'll do another one.
Oh my God, a little girl. Ooh, that gives me such... I can feel my goosebumps through my leggings. It's creeping me out.
Tiny little Satan.
Well, because, children aren't supposed to die. And children also aren't supposed to be the murderers.
They're innocent and sweet and precious.
I'm so conflicted. Just the fact that, on one hand, I'm putting myself in the position of the parents who lost their toddlers. Yeah. Innocent little babies, essentially. But then I'm also on the flip side thinking about the environment that Mary grew up in, and then even Norma. I mean, she's slow. Lord only knows what happened to her.
Yeah.
And I'm just conflicted because it's, she's a victim and the murderer at the same time.
In the documentary I watched, they're interviewing Martin Brown's mom. Mary and Norma babysat the kids of Martin Brown's aunt.
So they had a connection to that family. They knew the little boy.
Martin's mom would visit her sister, and the girls would ask the mom of Martin if she was sad and how much she missed Martin.
Oh, nope.
This is why you don't have kids.
This is why Emily is a child hater.
I am a child hater. You know, everyone that knows me, I feel like everyone that knows us already knows, like, just how we are anyway. So, like, honestly, if you don't know that this is who we are as people, fuck you. We're awesome. We made a really fun podcast. Give us your money on Patreon.
And she, I forgot this too. Mary asked to see the body in his coffin. She asked the mom. She was like, "Can I see the body in the coffin?" And was smiling. And okay, so after all of these shenanigans, they brought Mary and Norma in and had a child psychologist interview the girls.
Yeah, can you imagine being in that role?
No. Mm-mm.
Mary didn't react in any normal way to the pictures of the dead victims.
Oh my
And
God.
Mary denied everything.
Because, like, with the other kids and, like, you know, the notes and carving the M, like, she clearly wasn't trying to hide it at that point. But then when the police come, so now you've got authority figures, and now she's like, I didn't do anything. Because, again, that while she may not have had control over her decision making or be inhibited by, you know, having damage to that part of her brain, she clearly still knew enough to know that what she had done was wrong.
When I was listening to a story about Israel Keys, it was saying that when he was a kid, he would do like really weird things like kill animals or, you know, whatever. And he would show his friends. And I was listening to like a psychologist, and they were like, yeah, when kids have this tendency, because it's like normal for kids to have a tendency to have like weird thoughts of like, what would happen if like,
Curious.
what would a dead body look? You know what I mean? Especially people like us who really were into that shit from a young age. I was one of those fucking weirdos. The difference is like when you show your friends and you're like, hey, look, I just killed this cat over here. And all your friends are like, oh my fucking God, what the fuck are you talking about? That's usually the point where you as a child are like, oh, this is wrong. This is a bad choice. And so you would stop, whereas people like this just do it, but then usually just try to hide. They learn to hide it.
I'm over here giggling at myself because when I was a little kid, you know, somebody was like, you know, with snails, like, you gotta pour salt on them and see what happens. And I did. And I cried. Yeah. I still remember that. And I mean, slugs are gross, but, and had I known, if I had been told what would happen, I wouldn't have done it. And I tried to pour water over it. No, it just didn't.
I just think
Poor little Tori.
If I'm prepared for death, I'm like ready to hear about it. But if someone were to be like, oh, do this and see what happens, that is the saddest.
I know. I cried.
I was thinking the other night at what point I realized I was really into weird shit, and I remembered that my mom bought me a book called The Encyclopedia of Everything Disgusting, and I think she still has it, and it said like the viscosity of boogers and like
my family was really religious, and so I didn't get to see any of that. All of that was kind of like I wasn't allowed to watch PG-13 movies until like after I was like even older than 13, which is why I rebelled real hard when I hit high school and college. But you know, and as a little kid, I was scared of everything. So I kind of stayed away from the spooky stuff because my mother was very concerned that it all was going to lead to the occult.
My mom was super into like Stephen King stuff, but I don't consider that like scary.
Stephen King, we love you.
Stephen King, sponsor us. Go to our Patreon and give us money.
Yeah, sponsor us. Go to our Patreon.
Dude, Adam's Family was I worshipped Wednesday Addams. It's like...
But I remember being little and Ted Bundy was on Focus on the Family because, again, my parents were really religious, so they listened to James Dobson. And I remember listening to that interview with my parents and them, you know, and him blaming everything on pornography. And my mom's like, see, pornography is evil. And I was probably like, I was young.
Yeah, I remember finding a cassette tape in my dad's stuff, and it was the Ted Bundy interview.
What's a cassette tape?
It's
oh my God, I'm just kidding. Oh my God, I'm just kidding.
She's gonna fucking...
Like, she was not even amused. She was like, done. I don't even fucking want to record this. She slams the laptop and leaves, blocks me on the internet, moves away.
For those of you that don't know, there's a minor age difference between Emily and myself. We're actually all in a different decade. You're still in your 20s, right?
I am.
And you're in your 30s. I'm in my 40s. And I will just say I still look good for 40.
Yeah, when you said 3 decades, I was like, who is the 40? I don't understand. That's not... I'm like, I think your math is a little wrong. Okay. Yeah, that's impressive. Damn, bitch.
That was a sidebar.
Okay, let's see. Let's see. Mary denied everything. She would answer one question asked by the police, and then before they even finished asking it, and then she would automatically answer the other questions that they didn't yet ask.
Controlling, manipulating.
Yeah.
Again, some sociopathic tendencies there.
She was diagnosed of being a psychopath.
They won't diagnose with children as psychopaths or sociopaths that are under the age, I think, of 15.
I don't know how I feel about that.
It's because their brains and they're still
Yeah.
developing. And
Yeah, but
I
like
mean,
obviously in this case, that didn't make a fucking difference.
Yeah.
She's like an 11-year-old manipulating adults. That's like some fucking Benjamin Button. Your brain is an adult in the body of a child.
Right.
Bullshit. No 11-year-old thinks to do like the fuck. Like what the fuck? I'm sorry. I'm shook.
She has learned, this is learned behavior. She's watched her mother manipulate men, but she's also learned the violence and the.
It just makes you wonder nature versus nurture.
I think this is a perfect storm
It
of
makes you
both.
wonder
Because she
where
has
she
no emotion. Children who kills children. Anyone who kills kids. I just don't even get it.
Emily may be a child hater, but she does not support child murder.
I don't support it. I will, however, if I'm watching something, I can watch that all day. But if a dog dies, do not even fucking put me in front of the TV. Nothing will make me like cry or feel. Makes me sound like a sociopath, but like I'm just not super emotional when like people die or kids die. But if an animal dies, I fucking lose my
oh
mind.
my God, when the
Right.
ASPCA commercial comes on, I
Girl.
scream and change channel and run
I
away.
even hear Sarah McLachlan.
That's the end of it.
Oh God. Okay. So on August 4th, Norma finally caved and told police that Mary took her to go see the dead body of Martin. Norma showed the police exactly where Brian was found and how he was laying exactly. So they didn't believe her at first, but yeah, she
I
showed
Norma,
them.
snitch.
Snitches get stitches.
Yeah. I wonder where she is now. I didn't find anything on that. She showed them also the hiding spot where the scissors were that Mary used in the murder, that she used to carve the M.
Now, did Norma actively participate in the murder, or was she just watching Mary do it? Like, did she hold the
She
kid down?
says she watched Mary, but Mary says she helped. So it's just like this back and forth. They
right.
blamed each other immediately.
Turn on each other,
Yeah.
little bitches.
She blamed it all, Norma blamed it all on Mary and said she had nothing to do with it. Police also found a report that Mary wrote for school the Monday after Martin died. She left notes in it that only the police would know about the crime scene. She drew a little picture of the dead body with things that were near the dead body that nobody knew unless you were there. But they didn't find this report till way later. She also said that she wrote the notes that were found in the nursery. She said they wrote them for a giggle. After the for a giggle, I said, with all this adding up as evidence that motherfucking Mary was killing these tiny precious kids. This was like at midnight.
Motherfucker, Mary was killing these goddamn precious kids.
We've been recording for how long?
6 hours.
We've been doing this for 6 hours, so we're extra giggles.
We're extra giggles, yeah. We know that 6 hours is our limit.
We've lost Emily. Everybody's fizzling a bit.
I love it.
Oh, I snorted.
Keep it. Gotta keep that snort, so I'm not the only snorter. On August 8th, both girls were charged with 2 counts of manslaughter. The trial only lasted 9 days, and the BBC and other news outlets banned the story from the daytime bulletins because it involved children. Could you imagine that happening now?
The fact that children were involved would have made it headline news.
Okay, so during the trial, Mary appeared detached from what was happening, but she was incredibly attentive and super alert to everything that was going on. So any adult that was charged with taking care of her, she charmed, and they couldn't believe that this 11-year-old child could do such a thing. She really they thought she was so smart. And Norma was acquitted on the grounds of being quote unquote simple-minded.
That did not age well.
No. Mary was charged with manslaughter and detained at the Queen's pleasure, which is an indefinite amount of time to see if they can rehab you and release you into the wild, pretty much.
Into your natural habitat.
Yeah, pretty much. So at that point, Mary was sent to the Red Bank Secure Unit in Lancashire. After she was convicted, the British press gave her tons of attention, and her mother, remember fucking Betty?
Yeah, I mean, did Betty ever pay any price for the shit she did to
She
Mary?
loved to sell all the stories she could about her daughter.
Well, now that she can't sell her daughter anymore, she's gonna sell her story.
And there's they showed a little bit of an interview with her. No emotion, didn't give a shit. Was just like, yeah, it happened, I don't know what to tell you. And so then in 1978, they moved Mary to prison. In 1980, she was released from prison after serving just 12 years. The court gave her anonymity, which included a new name, so she could have a fresh start.
And that is the biggest load of bullshit. Oh my god, that makes me so angry. You think about the fact that, okay, so she's given this indeterminate sentence in the hopes that they will be able to rehabilitate her, but you're talking about an extremely charismatic and manipulative child who showed no remorse for what she had done. I mean, they wouldn't have released her if they thought she hadn't been rehabilitated. I think that the public has a right to know who she is and where she is.
So 4 years after her release, she had a daughter who was born on Mary's birthday. In 1998, her daughter discovered who Mary was. She didn't know because reporters found out Mary's identity. In 2003, the court decreed that Mary's daughter should have anonymity for life.
Now that I agree with. Like, that's not her, you know, it's not her fault that she was conceived to a sociopath. You know, the families of the people that commit these atrocities are victims as well. And they don't deserve...
Unless you're the daughter of BTK, you put out a book, usually.
You know, look, if they decide or choose to come forward and tell their story or profit, then, you know, that's their decision. I'd be really interested to hear how that daughter, like what her relationship with Mary as a mother was like.
Oh my God, also, okay, she spent 6 years in the Red Banks facility. She was the only girl among 22 boys. So let's just think about that.
That probably was not a good scenario. Okay, well, we're wrapping up.
We done.
Episode 3, Mary L. Bell. Wait, was it L. Bell? Did I just make up the
Mary
middle
L.
name?
Bell?
I was like, Mary L. Bell.
No.
Flora Bell.
Flora Bell.
Mary F. Bell. Where did I get the L from?
Thanks for listening, guys. Like,
Follow us on
subscribe.
Instagram.
Follow us on Instagram.
Follow us on Instagram.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram.
We'll have info for our Patreons.
Thanks for supporting us. We love you all with all my little heart. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.